One tight slap is long overdue. That is the title of today's Soft Talk presentation. Welcome to the program. On October 8, 2022, the Kathmandu Post ran a report titled Floods, Landslides Turn Deadly in Several Districts. Part of the report goes like this. The disasters claimed many lives, displaced hundreds of families and damaged crops planted in hectares of land. Thousands of passengers traveling during the Dasai festival, they have been stranded as landslides disrupted vehicular movement along various road sections. The same day, the Rising Nepal gave space to a report titled 140 houses inundated in Nawalparasi. It pointed that 140 houses in East Nawalparasi were flooded on Friday, that was on October 8, 2022, due to floods in Narayani and other rivers following incessant rainfall since the past few days. Other than that, several media outlets continue to give due coverage to reports about the disasters that made Vijayadashami a tear-filled festival for hundreds of thousands of Nepali families, with many having to run for their dear lives in the midst of receiving the Tika. As in the past, security personnel, ill-equipped and spread too thin, they did their best for the protection of lives and properties. As of this presentation, the spell of disasters continues, with water levels in several rivers and brooks crossing their respective danger marks. This is making weather forecasts from the Meteorological Forecast Division, that is the Weather Forecast Division in Nepal, quite accurate. There were times when the Met forecasts were quite unreliable, but these days it appears gone are the days when the sun would dare shine bright against the division's forecast of precipitation or vice versa. With or without weather balloons, the weather forecast division seems to be doing a great job. But is this support listed above? Is this support presented above enough for the most vulnerable lot? The lot that has been living in one of the most climate disaster prone and ill prepared countries, a country suffering from several other maladies like shrinking sovereign space, endemic corruption, malgovernance, chronic political instability and poverty, joblessness, high inflation, and declining standards of living. The most vulnerable populations need far more than reliable weather forecasts. They need far more than urgent appeals to move to safer places during natural disasters like floods and landslides, as they have nowhere else to go and no one to lean on. The survivors of these disasters will need support from the state to rebuild their lives, something that is very hard to come by. This support from the state is hard to come by, especially for the masses without powerful political connections. But for those with friends in higher places are close by. Even disasters and the state of homelessness mean a host of opportunities. Many victims of natural disasters may not be smart enough to get all the support they need. They will need support, especially from the state, the international humanitarian agencies, and local communities to rise from the rubble. But help is quite hard to get these days. As days pass by, the survivors of these disasters will find it quite hard to carry on in makeshift camps for want of essentials like food, water, and medicine. They will be at the risk of outbreak of several diseases like waterborne and cold-borne diseases. The going will be especially tough for senior citizens, women, and children. As always, international humanitarian agencies are spread too thin. They are spread in crisis hit hotspots of geostrategic and geopolitical significance all across all continents except the Antarctica. They may hardly have any time and a resource available for those in dire need in Nepal. At this time of disasters, the opposition parties in the parliament seem quite busy. They are busy with preparations to give the five-party ruling coalition under Prime Minister Sher Bahadur Deuba a tough competition in provincial and federal elections that are round the corner. In fact, that may be the reason why the opposition parties have not found time to shed crocodile tears for the victims of these disasters through press statements and hastily arranged aerial visits. But is this the only reason behind their silence? The ruling coalition partners also do not seem to have the time to spare in this time of need. They too are busy drafting manifestos and working out honorable electoral arrangements to secure a smashing victory by making sure that none of the hunchos and their near and dear ones lose in the upcoming provincial and federal elections. That may be the reason why neither the partners nor the government have bothered to issue press statements mourning the massive loss of lives and properties, that too in the time of elections. It's quite possible that the ruling coalition and the opposition parties are working out ways to cash in on the plight of the victims of natural disasters. Perhaps both the sides are waiting for the victims' wounds to fester further, so as to turn the wounds into a strong electoral agenda, an agenda that will ensure them a swift and decisive win. What was most surprising was the fact that even the presidential palace kept mum in the wake of a national tragedy this time around. Notably, the former president, speaking at a program some days ago, the former president Rambaran Yadav had expressed concern about this rampant environmental exploitation in Nepal. Had disasters like these occurred on foreign shores, the government, the political parties of Nepal, and the presidential palace, they all would have swiftly issued press statements mourning the losses. So the question arises, what may be the reason or the reasons behind this deafening silence of the Nepali state amid this disaster? amid this spell of disasters? Does it point that the state will continue to allow mining of construction materials like sand and boulders with scant regard for environmental fragility of the country, the environmental fragility of the terrain, also because it gets cuts from the contractors involved in these mining works? Is this silence an indication that absurd development of roads will continue in the country in the holy name of development, with no regard at all for the carrying capacity of the terrain concerned? Furthermore, is it a pointer that the Nepalese state will continue to undertake or support environmentally unfriendly activities in the name of development? Activities carried out for exporting benefits like round the year regulated flow of water, all for free, flood control, irrigation, groundwater recharge, and ecology gain across the border, all for free, at the cost of Nepal and Nepalese for generations and generations to come. Is this deafening silence meant to not harm the prospects of controversial export-oriented projects like the Upper Karnali, the Saptakosi High Dam project, the reservoir-based West Seti and Seti 6 projects? This as part of efforts to capture Nepal's remaining lifelines following the capture of lifelines like the Kosi, the Gandaki, and the Mahakali rivers through a very controversial bilateral arrangements in the first phase, that was during 1950 AD to 1990 AD. Several media reports have blamed unilateral construction of water regulatory structures like high elevation roads along no man's land or into Nepal for inundation in the southern plains. Is this studied silence, especially on the part of the government and the opposition political parties, also meant to not cause immediate unease across the border down south? There is no denying that collusion between powers that be and powerful vested interests have increased the impact of natural disasters in Nepal manifold, with not even Swatantra or independent electoral candidates taking up their cause. Perhaps the young Turks are yet to rise up to this occasion. The victims of natural disasters in Nepal have found themselves. These victims have found themselves in a tight spot. But these victims have themselves and fellow Nepalese to look for support and rebuild their lives. Known for their resilience, Known for its resilience, the Nepali society will rise from the rubble once again. At this juncture, apart from resilience, the Nepali electorate, once again deprived of this right to reject all those tried, tasted, and corrupt to the core parties and their candidates, this Nepali electorate should learn one more skill to oust these tried, tested, and corrupt to the core political parties and their candidates. That is, giving one tight slap to those who deserve it. When on November 20, 2022, that is when the elections, the provincial and federal elections will take place once again. Let that anger in you, the anger that is the result of years of corruption, malgovernance, misrule, political instability, environmentally unfriendly development, joblessness, et al. Let all of this turn the anger in you into some red hot anger and trigger one tight, swift slap. And let this slap, delivered in the opportune moment to all those deserving candidates, quote unquote, deserving candidates out there, reverberate across time and space for years to come. Let that slap make way for a new beginning. You know what? You all probably know what I mean by deserving candidates in this context. I'm referring to the tried, tested, and corrupt to the core lot that has been ruling Nepal and wrecking Nepal for decades on end. Let that slap, let that tight slap go down in the annals of history as an unforgettable lesson in democracy and human rights. With this remark, I wrap up this edition of Soft Talk. This is an initiative towards citizen journalism. Your support in this crucial juncture in the life of journalism, in the history of journalism, will mean an awful lot to us. So we ask you all out there to subscribe to our channel, comment on our presentation, and suggest us ways to improve our overall package, including our presentations. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening.